You are watching Vision Sunday. And if we were all in a room together right now, I would have all of you clap. But that's going to be potentially super awkward depending on where you are right now. But you know what? Go ahead. Go ahead. Have a round of applause in your living room or in your car or something like that. But here's why. This is one of my absolute favorite days at Keystone Montgomeryville for a lot of reasons, but really because you get to see what God has been doing here at this church. And I know, like, you go to this church, this is your church, but sometimes you don't get to see everything that is going on. But on days like this, we don't hit pause, but we do take a look back and then a look forward at not just what God has been doing, not just what God is doing, but what God is going to be doing through Keystone Montgomeryville. So welcome to Vision Sunday. And I am excited because we have so very much to be grateful for. And we're going to tell you about some of that today. But some of you, I know, you hear Vision Sunday and you think, oh boy, here we go. That's what they tell us at work all the time. We have all hands meetings where they talk about this is the vision of the company. And I just got to tell you, that is not what this is. This is what it is. In Proverbs 29:18, it says, without vision, we all die. That is my translation, okay? That is not like, that's what it says. Without vision, we all die. So it is not just a business term when I say vision. It is a biblical term. It is a God term because we want to lead with vision. We don't want to neglect that. We want to lead with that. We also don't want to neglect faith. Faith is part of the vision. In fact, I think you got to have faith when God gives you a vision, because sometimes he doesn't give you all the pieces. Have you ever experienced that? He gives you a vision for something he's going to do in your life, but you're not sure how it's going to be done. So you need faith. I mean, you know what I say all the time. This is not a new phrase. The success of Keystone Montgomeryville will only be measured by our faithfulness to God. So you may be thinking like, oh, so we're not going to have any goals this year? We're not going to do it? No, we absolutely are going to have goals this year. We're going to count things because I think that's important to do. But that is not what leads us. What leads us is the vision that God gave us and the faithfulness to him, his church, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. So that is, you can probably tell, like I'm getting excited. And there's only like 3 people in this room and I'm one of them. But I am excited about what God has been doing at Keystone. So 2025, does anybody remember our theme? It wasn't one word last year. It was a couple words. Do you remember it? I used to say it wrong a lot of times, but here's what it was. At Keystone 2025, our theme was one heart, one soul, not one heart, one love. I said it wrong sometimes. One heart, one soul. You might be thinking, well, how did we do? How did we do last year? Well, I'll tell you this. Our church grew a lot numerically last year. That's a fact. If you come regularly, especially to the second service, you know who I'm looking at, then you know we grew numerically. Just over the last few years, we're growing on a Sunday attendance perspective, we're growing in like the 20% range. That is a very healthy growth. That is incredible. It is so fun. This year, we had over 1,300 people every week come. We had 1,849 people come to Christmas Eve. That was 5 services, gang. 5 services. I'll tell you, that was so much fun. But that is not what we're chasing. People coming on the weekend is awesome. It's great. But that is the byproduct of faithful believers being the church. I mean that. We don't chase a high attendance. We like it, but we don't chase it. But that is a byproduct of God's people being faithful. So our church, it's growing, it's expanding. I mean, there's a lot of you, and a lot of you come on Sunday. A lot of you come on Thursday to our student nights. A lot of you come to everything we do, and we couldn't be happier about that. We want you to engage with us on that level. But what we also love is that we're engaging in the community, that we're not just coming to a building and having an awesome worship service, which we do, but we're also engaging where we live. We're telling our neighbors about Jesus. We're talking about what God is doing in our lives. And so if you go to Keystone Montgomeryville, I mean, who knows how you got on here today? But if this is your home church, then know this: you go to a growing, expanding church that loves to see people come to Jesus. And last year was no different. In fact, I'm going to give you a few of my highlights. And I start with the same one every year. You know what I'm going to say. I'm going to give you a chance to guess it. What do you think my number 1 highlight was for last year? 1, 2, 3, 4. You get 4 seconds. It's baptisms. It's always going to be baptisms. I don't know what else it would be. I love it when people come to Christ, and I love it when they get baptized. Every year, that's going to be my number one. I'm not probably ever going to change. It's because I think it's so near and dear to me, because as a pastor, I remember, and I've told you this before, I remember the very first person I ever baptized. And why I remember it is because he didn't need to be baptized. You say, well, why did you baptize? Because I was practicing. I was practicing on someone. I had never baptized anyone before. And someone on a Sunday at the church I was leading, they said, I'd like to get baptized this week. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've never baptized anybody. I don't know how to do that. So I had an intern that summer where I was working. He happened to be living at our house. And I said, Chris, I need you to come over with me to the church today. We're going to fill up the baptistry and I'm going to baptize you. And he's like, well, I've already been baptized. I was like, yeah, I know that, Chris. Well, I'm going to baptize you. Now, I should note, Chris is like 6'5". So we got in that little baptism. I had to get down in the water with him. I baptized him probably 5 times because I was practicing and his leg would pop up. But so I got really good at it that day. I baptized him in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit 5 times. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so ever since then, that's how I've been doing it. They haven't all been 6'5", but that is the way the Bible does it. That's the way I do it. I baptize you, my brother or sister, in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Boom, boom, and we do it. Now, thankfully, when we do it here, I don't have to get down in the water with you. So that's nice, because literally, I think we would just have to stay in there, because over the last 3 years, we've baptized a lot of people. In fact, this year, we baptized 126 people at Keystone Montgomeryville. And that is why it's a highlight for me. Man, I love looking back at the pictures. I go back and look at them sometimes just to see. Sometimes they're outside in our parking lot. Sometimes they're in here. We'll baptize anybody, anywhere. We even had a baptism at our Christmas Eve service this year. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take just like a quick minute, and I'm going to show you all 126 baptisms. Go right now. So did anybody keep count? Did we miss one? I don't think we did. I guess you can go back and watch it again. I hope you do. You should go back, timestamp this right here and say, man, when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling low, I'm going to go watch that little segment of 126 people getting baptized at my church. I mean, like the church that we call our home. It is incredible. So what else? I don't know. How about this? How about the One Heart, One Soul Vision campaign? That was a big deal at our church in 2025. It was about a year ago, depending on when you're watching this, but in March of last year, we unveiled some plans that we have. And we know that we are going to be needing, sooner than later, to either expand the building where we are or relocate somewhere else. We have been feverishly, when I say feverishly, man, I mean feverishly looking, because we are running out of space. I mean, you wouldn't believe what we're doing on Sunday morning. I'm not even going to tell you because I don't want to have it on record, but we are meeting in every nook and cranny in this place on Sundays, on Thursdays. We got people in here every night with CGs and counseling, all you name it, it happens here. So we said we want to raise $3 million. We set a goal for $3 million to help us take those big first steps towards either expanding where we are or relocating somewhere very close, talking 8 to 10 minutes away, nothing crazy. And so far, at least as of January 25th, 2026, we have received $1,454,576.34. Can I just tell you, that's incredible. That is real. Not like the money is real. That's a real thing. But that shows that we are in this for the long haul. That shows that people don't just want to hear vision. They want to be a part of the vision. So I don't know how you're watching this today. And maybe someone sent this to you and said, hey, this is my church. And you're looking at it. And I got to tell you, I'm grateful that you're watching. And I'm grateful that what you're seeing is something pretty amazing that is going on here. But I do want to level with you. We have got problems at this church. I'll tell you what they are. We got parking problems, big time. We got seating problems. We got space problems. And everybody that comes through the door sees it. and then they stay because there's something about this place that's just like, wow, I don't know what it is, but I want to come back. So if you're watching this for the first time, maybe it's your first time ever hearing a Vision Week Sunday, just know we got problems, but because of our vision campaign and what God has been showing us, we are doing something about it. We're going to either expand right here or relocate somewhere nearby. And we're not just talking about it, okay? We're not just talking about doing it. We are actively searching. In fact, back in the fall of 2025, we started a prayer walking, you remember that? A prayer walking campaign. And we put up a big prayer walking map on our wall. I believe there's going to be a picture right now. And we prayer walk, it is really hard to tell how many, but I know it was hundreds of miles in a zone that we said, we want to find some place right here. I mean, where we are now was on that map. Who knows? We might be able to expand right here. That's certainly something we're looking into. And through that process, we have come really close a couple of times to finding a new location, like really, really close. And they're just falling through at the last moment. Here's what I think about that. I believe God is waiting until we are absolutely ready to be able to move into or expand into a new location. And then I believe he'll reveal the next step. And that's been a real adventure. And it's been very tasking on my somewhat obsessive brain as where we're going to be. Why haven't we found it? And oh my goodness, how are we going to do it? In fact, some of you that get the weekly email, you probably even noticed over the first few weeks of this year that our weekly number, that's that little number at the bottom of the email, that's what we need as a church to sustain our current ministry. You might have noticed, like, boy, that really took a good jump this year. Like it used to be this, and now it's $44,916. Like that's basically $45,000 a week. That's a lot of money, everybody. Yeah, I know that. You might be wondering, like, why did we jump almost $3,000 there? Well, I'll tell you, I'm a frugal guy, so I would want to know, like, what is that? Is that so Mark can buy better toys and better stuff? No, I don't think so. I'm happy with the toys I have, but it is for a reason. When we got really close to purchasing a building, we began running numbers, and our stewardship team did such a good job. Our team is so talented in that. And they started breaking down what it would cost to move to a new building, even with the vision campaign. And we determined that it's going to be not a ton more than what we already have at a weekly need, but it would definitely cost us. And so we decided this year with that team and my advisory team and the elders, we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and start living as if we're paying a mortgage, so to speak. And I said, that's a great idea. I practice that in my own life. I'm going to go ahead and live as if I'm paying this amount. Now, it will cost us more than that, most likely, if we move. But my point is this. When we do move, I want to be ready to move, and I don't want the shock to be, oh my goodness, our weekly number used to be 42,000 and now it's 48. No. So we're kind of stair-stepping into that. We're paying ourselves as if we had already moved. So I want you to know that because that's important. We're a family. This is a church, but we are a family. And so that is a target for us, one that we should be praying over, one that we should be stewarding with, one that we should be giving toward. Like this is how we operate. And when the time comes, I want us to be ready to move. You think about this. This is biblical. Noah once was told to build a boat. A boat? You realize Noah had never seen a flood. He said, there's going to be a great flood. You need to build a boat. Noah had never seen a flood. Anybody want to guess what Noah did? I'll break it down to you in Keystone language. He heard God. He believed God. Anybody know the step 3? He obeyed God. He built a boat. In every way, Noah is the OG HBO from the Old Testament. I should have said OT. OG HBO OT. I hope that gets you today, right? Because he had never even seen it rain. And he said, God said, build a boat. I'm going to build a boat. What's a boat? I don't know, but we're going to build one, right? He built it. Why? Because he believed in the vision that God gave him. So we're not building a boat. And we may not be building a building. We may, who knows, we may refit a building. But we know this. God is saying, get ready. And so we are starting even now to live like and act like that we're already ready. Third thing, Keystone Mission offering. Hey guys, that was incredible. Absolutely incredible. $135,000, over that actually, for Keystone Missions. Generosity is built in to the vision that God has for Keystone. It always has. Keystone's in its 25th year this year, 2026. And generosity has been part of that since day one. In fact, back in June, 2025 June, somebody asked me in a good way, not they were asking me in a good way, are we going to do a Keystone mission offering this fall? I mean, we got One Heart, One Soul campaign going. You got a weekly budget we got to get going. We're also going to raise this money. We made that decision right then. And I would say, actually, no, we didn't make that decision right then. We made that decision 25 years ago when the church said, we're going to be a church that gives away. We're going to be a church that's generous. I didn't make that decision. Pastor John and his family made that decision. This is built into the DNA of Keystone, and I am grateful for it. So, I'm also not the only one here that has highlights. I know that. Those are my highlights. I could list 100 more, but you guys don't have all day, and neither do I. So what we did this year is we put a video together. Some of our staff got together. They sat down with an awesome person that knows how to make wonderful videos named Emily, and she captured their highlights for this year, and I want you to watch that right now.
When I look back on 2025, God was just so good to our student ministry. For years, we had been wanting to multiply our Thursday night programming for middle schoolers and for high schoolers. In 2025, God made a way for that to happen. I think back to a specific high school night. God had really put it on my heart that week to clearly articulate the gospel message and provide an opportunity for the students to respond to that. And sure enough, when I asked students to stand to their feet as a response to the gospel, 14 students stood up. It was such an encouraging moment for our ministry.
When I think back at this past year, the word that comes loud and clear to me is abundance. As a result of all of the abundance that the Lord brought to us, the most important thing that it brought this past year, in my opinion, was an abundance of stories. One in particular is one of our little 3-year-olds. She heard the story and the theme that God helps me be brave. She's riding in a car with her mommy, and her mom is in the front seat, very upset about something. The little girl can tell that her mommy's really afraid, and she says, as the mom is relaying this story to me with tears in her eyes, she says, "Do you know what my daughter said from the back seat in her little car seat? Mommy, we just have to pray for God to make you brave." The abundance of stories that have come this past year have been overwhelming to me.
When I look back on 2025, one of the memories that sticks out to me most is from our November prayer and praise. We had so many amazing testimonies that day, but I remember one specifically came from Hope, where she talked about how her journey to find Jesus was marked by so many different songs throughout that period. And at that prayer and praise, we had the opportunity to sing a lot of those songs, and only one of them was planned. So it was kind of really cool to see how God worked through that and just partnered with her testimony in that way, and we all got to celebrate together. It was really cool.
As I reflected on some of my favorite moments in the elementary ministry from 2025, I thought of many moments simply in worship. Whether on a Sunday morning or at camp, worship has been so powerful this year. We have so many student leaders on our worship teams, and the kids just really look up to them. One of my favorite moments in worship was actually this past month in December when the kids led the adult congregation in worship. They sang 2 songs, and the second song, Holy Forever, is a song that they know very well. It was just so beautiful to see them raising their hands and worshiping wholeheartedly, and I'm just so blessed that we get to do that with them every single Sunday.
Well, 2025 was a great year for short-term missions at Keystone. One special story that sticks out in my mind was meeting this lady in the Middle East and having her rush up to my wife, very excited to see her. We had shared the gospel with her in their house. She was a Muslim. Since we were there last, she lost her husband tragically, and the church there in the Middle East just put their arms around her and loved her, helped meet her financial needs, and as a result, she became a believer. And now she is involved in the church. She works in the Women's Center and has a true new life in Jesus and a joy even in the midst of this tragedy. So that was one really cool example of seeing how God worked.
When looking back at 2025, Kids Camp is definitely a standout moment. Kids Camp is always a crazy and fun experience, but it's also one of the most powerful weeks of the year. And God's faithfulness is just so evident throughout the whole week. Seeing kids and leaders be set free from fears and struggles, seeing leader testimonies be used to connect with kids. I can think back to a specific story when a kid really opened up about a struggle and a trauma that they had experienced, and there was a leader there who had a very similar experience and story, and only God could have orchestrated that moment between them to connect and just to really minister to him. So it just was so evident that God was there, he was moving and working in all things. So God's faithfulness was really on display this year at camp.
When I was back in 2025, I kept on thinking about Camp Keystone, our student ministry. Our theme was Word of God, and there were so many Word of God moments. It was our highest attended camp, and there were so many new leaders, especially in our young adult ministry. A story that I remember is a student was having a really tough time at camp. His small group and his leaders were praying for him earnestly, and by the end of the week, he encountered God in a mighty way.
So when I look back on 2025 and I think about a lot of the awesome things that we got to do in women's ministry, one of the most impactful moments for me was at our women's retreat. We were talking about being broken and yet chosen and loved and beautiful. I don't think that I'll ever forget at the end of our time together, and we shared this time with the women of Chelton, and there were roughly 300 women in the room. We were just led in worship with the song Made for More. And there was just something about being in a room with 300 women singing that we weren't made to be tending graves. We were born and raised, called by name, that we were made for more. It was just such a sweet spirit in the room. That was probably just one of the moments of 2025 that really touched me.
So 2025, no doubt it was a year that God decided to shift our expectations, and he really wanted us to press ahead with expectations that would only be the result of what he could do. And so when he does that, he obviously stretches you. And I tell you, he did that with our staff first and foremost. I know he did it with our whole church. As we went into the One Heart, One Soul campaign, that was where he really began to show us that there were other ways in which he wanted us to think. He wanted us to give people the blueprint and really paint a picture of what the mission is. And so we did that. And the night where that really crystallized for me was actually the Wednesday night before we launched One Heart, One Soul. It was our prayer and praise. And we really used that night to kind of launch the spiritual aspect of that campaign, which was central to it. And what we did is we zoomed in 3 different prayer teams from around the area. We had Doylestown, we had Norristown, and then we had down in Center City. And we zoomed them in on the big LED wall, and we let them lead our church in prayer. For me, one specific moment, God broke me as we prayed for the city of Philadelphia. God really showed me that people so desperately need Jesus, but it's through the church, it's through us. And so he painted a picture of the mission right there for me. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that what God did the whole year, but definitely through One Heart, One Soul, is he crystallized in the hearts and minds of our people, this is what the mission is all about. It's about the people. It's not about a building. We've never made it about that. It's not about us. It's about his mission to rescue lost and hurting people. And 2025 was a year of growth in the mission of God.
Don't you just love that video? I'm telling you, I watched it 2 or 3 times the other night when I got the final draft. It is incredible. God is doing and will do wonderful things here at Keystone Montgomeryville. So what is he going to do in 2026? I'm glad that you ask. Every year, I read the Bible and I go like, well, let's see. What do we want to do this year? What sort of word do we want to kind of place over this year? And well, I'll tell you this. Maybe it's the first time you're ever watching this. Maybe it's the first time you've ever interacted with us. Maybe you're looking for a local church. Can I just tell you, this is it. You found it. There's a lot of great local churches in the area. There's just something about Keystone Montgomeryville. But you got to know, we expect a lot. We're very aggressive because we don't have a choice. The stakes are high, and we know that. The success of Keystone Montgomeryville will not be measured by how good I preach or how great our staff is or how wonderful our building may or may not be someday. The success of Keystone Montgomeryville will only be measured by our faithfulness to God. And we take that very seriously. So if this is going to be your church home, just know we take that very seriously. And this year, as we look ahead, the theme word, if you will, the word is ready. Ready. Just one word, single word. Ready. You say, well, how did you get that word? Well, I'll tell you. I was praying back in the fall 2025, and I was obviously putting some things together. And at first, I thought God told me that the word is get ready. So I wrote that down. I was like, well, that's pretty good. I like that. That'll preach. You know, if you're a preacher or ever preach a sermon, you kind of know what I mean there. Get ready. I was like, yeah, I like that. I even said it out loud to two people. Hey, I think the theme's going to be get ready this year. I like it. And the more I thought about it, the more I prayed about it, I realized that I was right, but I was also wrong. Anybody ever been right at the same time that they were wrong? Because we were in a series at the time called Real. Maybe some of you remember it was a study through Colossians. I really liked it. And I was praying about this year and asking, like, God, what should we do this year, you know? And he gave me the word ready. And I was like, well, God, that's going to be confusing because we're in Real and people are going to get that confused. And, you know, I'm just overthinking it. But that's what it is. And here's why I think that is the more I thought and prayed about it, the more I realized this year is a hinge year. I really believe that. 2026 is a hinge. You know, there's hinges on doors, they open and close, gates have hinge, you know what I mean, a hinge. And meaning we are closing out 2025, and the years prior have been great years. A lot of fruit we've seen. A lot of fruit that we're getting to eat because of the work that has been done at this church for 25 years. And this year, I really feel a new door, a new promise is being opened up. And I know some of you right now are like, okay, well, what's that got to do with, you know, how is that any different, Pastor, than any other year? Because I feel like you say something like this every year, and you are right. But I'm telling you, this year feels different. And that's where that word ready comes in. Because I believe we're in a very special place as a church. I really believe that. This isn't just me, you know, just muttering along here. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. I think we're seeing and experiencing more of God, at least than I ever have. Maybe not some of you. I don't want to cast that to everybody, but as a church, as a whole, I don't think that God is just telling us, get ready for what's next. I don't think that's it. I believe he's saying, you are ready. You are ready. You're 25 years old as a church. You are ready. But also be ready for what is coming. And I believe that in my bones. Keystone's Montgomeryville's vision for 2026 is to beat back hell and bring heaven down by living ready. That's it. That's what we're going to do this year. Living ready. Well, what do you mean, right? Well, obviously, we've got some things attached to that. We're going to be faithful with what God has entrusted to us. I think sometimes we're always looking for more. What's next? And I really believe God is saying, be ready with the things I've already given you. In fact, in February, we're going to do a whole sermon series called Ready. We're going to study through the book of 2 Timothy. So you start reading that now. I think God is telling us that it's time to be serious about discipleship and connect groups. We have wonderful people that disciple. We have great connect groups. So it's not like we're starting something we've never done. I believe God is saying, get ready with the things you already have. I've entrusted you with much. I believe he's saying, be intentional about developing leaders. We're a church that plants churches, Maybe digitally. They could just make me say it for 3 minutes. I don't think they will. That is what we do. So we have got to develop leaders. We have so many young adult leaders that are ready. They just need to be developed. They're already here. What are we going to do with them? I think he's saying, continue to be generous and be ready to send. We're a sending church. We're a church that plants churches, and that means we send churches, we send people. Last year, we announced, in fact, at Vision Sunday, that we're going to launch Keystone Harvest, a new church in the Norristown, Plymouth Meeting, all that area over there. We're going to plant that church. Well, guess what? They're a few days away from their public launch. And I want to show you a quick little video of what it looks like right now.
There's a field ripe for harvest, waiting for laborers. Jesus said, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few." We are the laborers. This is our harvest. Keystone Harvest is a movement called to proclaim good news in Plymouth Meeting, Bluebell, Ambler, East Norriton, West Norriton, and the entire Norristown area. Our mission: to connect with people, lead them into a real and meaningful relationship with Jesus, and equip them for life and service. We are artists, musicians, engineers, scientists, carpenters, teachers, and drivers. We are dads, moms, husbands, wives, sons, and daughters. We are laborers. Here we are, God. Send us. We will engage this city, make disciples, and plant your church. We are Keystone Harvest.
Isn't it incredible to see another Keystone Church launching out this year? And if you live in that area and maybe you're coming to Keystone Montgomeryville and you've been kind of on the hinge of whether I should go or not, go check it out. God is doing a new work and a great work through Salim and his team at Keystone Harvest. God's given us a lot to be ready for. And you know, this isn't the first time that God has looked at his people and said something like this: "You're standing at the edge of promise. Are you ready?" In fact, one of my favorite people in the Bible once stood on the edge of promise and said he was ready, but everybody else said, "We're not ready." Anybody want to guess who it is? It's Caleb. Caleb is one of the greatest stories in the Old Testament. You'll find it in Joshua 14, but I got to believe his story could be categorized as this: you got to be ready when the promise comes. You've been given much. Are you ready? Caleb is standing there and he's looking at Joshua in Joshua 14, and he basically says, "Do you remember the promise that God gave to me? I remember it. I remember it really well." I mean, just in case none of you remember it, Caleb was one of the 12 spies that they sent to look at the land that God had given them. And he looks at that land and he sees the same thing everybody else does. He saw giants, he saw hardship, he saw a mountain. Oh my goodness, how are we going to take this? Flawed from the start, right? It's going to be bad. 10 of the 12 said, "There is no way we're going in there. We can't do it." But 2 said something like this: "God can do this. God can do this. I don't see it all, but I've seen enough." God ever give you a promise like that? And you say, "I don't know how you're going to do this, but I know you." God, I don't know how you're going to pull this off, but I know you. And if you say you can do it, we're going to do it. Well, Caleb was right, but they didn't go in. They didn't do it. They went with the 10. And for 40 years, they wandered and wondered what they should have done, even though they knew what they should have done. Now listen, Caleb lived through all of that. You ever think about that? Caleb wandered the desert for 40 years, knowing the promise that God had given him. You ever think about this? There was millions of people. You remember how many funerals did Caleb attend? Do you know? All of them. All of them. Dead, 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 dead. All of them. Everyone who doubted died in that wilderness. Oh my. Caleb, he you know what? He could have had a chip on his shoulder. He could have said things like, "You know what? This isn't my fault. I'm going to be bitter." That's not what he did. He said, "I was faithful. I still believe we're going to get it. I don't know how. I don't know when, but we're going to get it." A promise is a promise. And he waited and waited and waited. It says in Joshua 14:7, I'm going to read these verses to you. Stick with me. "I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me to Kadesh Barnea." This is Caleb talking. "To spy out the land. And I brought him word again as it was in my heart. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt. Yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, 'Surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God.' And now, behold, The Lord has kept me alive, just as he said, these 45 years since the time that the Lord spoke his word to Moses, while Israel walked in the wilderness. And now behold, I am this day 85 years old. I am still as strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and coming. So now, give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day how the Anakim were there, with their great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out, just as the Lord said. Man, I hope you paid attention to that, because Caleb is saying, I am 85 years old. Give me that mountain. Why was he so insistent on that? Because it had already been given to him. The promise was made. He said, give me the hardest assignment left. That's the one I want. Why would he say that? Because Caleb never stopped being ready. He didn't have to start something new. He didn't have to rethink it. He said, it's time. I'm ready. So what does that teach us as a church? I think it teaches a lot of things. Ready doesn't mean everything that happens or doesn't happen is because something did or didn't happen. Ready means we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready when the promise comes. Just to make the obvious connection here, I sometimes feel that way when I'm looking for a location. I'm out driving streets and looking at maps. I'm like, where's God sending us? Is it here? Is it there? I don't know. But I'm going to be ready when I do know. What is God telling us to do with this leadership development? What is he telling us to do with all the things that he's given us? We don't know everything all the time, but we can know him. We don't know how he's going to do it, but we know him. And if he says we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Ready for us in 2026 means this: we're not going to quit when it takes longer than we expected. Caleb didn't. We don't walk away from the promise because it got heavy. It's going to cost us. That's okay. God told us to do it. We don't shrink back because the responsibility is big. You realize the trust and responsibility the Lord of Lords has given us at this church to shepherd people. It's incredible. It's an honor. We're going to be ready. A ready church can see further than the moment it's in. That's what we're going to do. A ready church believes longer and is willing to believe longer than anybody else. Caleb believed for 45 years. That is a long time. A ready church is willing to fight for what God has promised. Now, that's not war language there. I don't mean that. It was for them. I'm not applying that to us that way. I'm saying at 85 years old, Caleb said, I can fight like I did at 40. I believe God can supernaturally give us a passion like we've never had, a heart like we've never had, physicality like we've never had, to do the work like we've never had. And I want us to be ready for it. Caleb says, I haven't forgotten the promise. What I really haven't forgotten is who gave it. Who gave that promise? God gave that promise. So here's where I'm going to close our time out here. Keystone's vision, 2026. It's very simple. Beat back hell, bring heaven down. That part, same every year. How we're going to do that? By living ready. This year, you're going to see a lot of incredible things. I think we're going to see some heavy lifting. I want us to be ready. So as we're getting ready, we're going to be faithful. We're going to be faithful for what God has entrusted with us. We're going to get serious about discipleship and connecting in groups. We're going to be intentional about leadership mapping and developing people to go further than they think they can go, or get really good at what they're doing now. And we're going to continue to be generous with the vision that God has given us. I'm excited, and I hope you're excited too. I'll see you this weekend.